Today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanism in The Climbers. This is a dexterity strategy game that I played for the first time a few weeks ago, and I can't believe I haven't played this before because it is a really fun game. Basically, the idea of the game is that you set up something that doesn't actually look like this yet. You set up all these blocks in a big rectangle, and all of you are pawns. Everyone who's playing, it's a competitive game, are these little pawns that you start off on the ground, and you are trying to work your way up to the top of the structure. And one of the really cool things about it is that the choice that you make on your turn is to pick up one block from somewhere on the structure, or the mountain, I guess it is, and move it to some other place. Ideally with either a neutral color or your own color. I play red, so I would aim for red, facing up, meaning that you can move your climber, your pawn, on top of it, if it's within range, which I'll get into in a second. But you're building this structure as you go and moving up to the top of it, and you're trying to be at the highest point of the mountain at a point where no one else can move. That's the objective of the game. So there's this really neat thought space in this game. You're thinking very much in 3 dimensions. And it's one of those games where you're standing up almost the entire time and looking around the table, looking at it from different perspectives. That was instinctively, that was going to be my favorite mechanism. I like the idea that we were standing up during a board game. But it's not really a mechanism. It's just kind of a symptom of how the game works. My favorite mechanism in the game is actually not even a mechanism either. It's more tied to a component or components. But I really like how the components in this game, specifically the size of the components, is unabstracted to the point where their use and where you can use them is very clear. For example, the first one is the meeples. The height of the meeples is very specific because they're basically built tall enough so that they can look over pieces that are, look over these half blocks. So you can kind of see it in this top picture. See this blue meeple can look over, his eye line is just above this blue tile. So that is saying that this blue meeple is eligible to move onto that blue tile because he can see over it, he can climb up onto it. Whereas if this blue tile were a little higher, if it was half a block taller, the meeple wouldn't be tall enough to see over it, and so you would know visually that you can't move the blue meeple onto it, even though blue is showing on this block. Similarly, you have a few tokens in the game that you can use to kind of cheat. One time during the game, you have three tokens. 2 of them are ladders. There's a tall ladder, there's a shorter ladder that I think you can kind of see down on the ground over here, and I don't think you can see it here. There's also, well, you can kind of see it. There's also like a little cube or a little disc. The cube or the little disc is probably like the most abstracted component. Basically, you can, at one point in the game, you can put it on top of a block to block that block from anyone else moving onto it until your next turn, and then you can pick up that block and start moving again. So that's a bit abstracted, but the ladders are really cool because the ladders could have been any component. They could have been really anything, say, like maybe a marker saying, hey, this is something that you can move up 3 blocks. But instead of abstracting it like that, they actually made these ladder tokens exactly tall enough so that you can see how far you can climb with them. That way you can actually move your ladders around, the tall one and the short one, and see, okay, I can just barely make it up onto this block, or I can't quite make it. I need to move up a little bit before I put my ladder down on the block. I love it when components make games more intuitive. And this game, especially given the spatial elements of this game in The Climbers, it does that really well. The components fit perfectly with exactly how you need to use them. Their form and function are one. If you can think of another game that does this, where the components make the game more intuitive and make it easier to play so that you can focus on the strategy instead of what this component does or what this component means, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Or if you have a favorite mechanism that I missed in The Climbers, I'd love to hear about that as well. Thanks.